Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you. Wherever you're watching me from, whatever time zone, whatever nation, whatever nationality you are, whatever tribe you're from, whatever your social class, whatever your ideals, your idealistic thoughts, whatever your thoughts of the future, whatever your thoughts of the current, whatever your interpretation of the past, I welcome you to my welcome. All are welcome, I welcome you. All are welcome, I welcome you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord bless and keep you. We're going to speak about how eyes are gateways. How eyes are gateways. How eyes are a gateway. Eyes are a gateway. Eyes are a gateway. You will know from yourself that when you have nightmares or attacked in the spirit, many of the visions, assuming you see anything that is coming after you, many of the visions, the spirits that you see, interact with, interact with. Ura Brasingre. The things that you interact with, you would have had at some point or another, had an experience with that spirit in one form or another. You would have seen it, you would have heard it, you have meditated on it, you would have moved with it in one way or another. And those spirits stick with you. Those spirits stick with you. The things you see in your nightmares, the things that give you goosebumps, the things that hold you down, you have seen that somewhere. Maybe it was a movie, maybe it was a book, maybe it was a magazine. Somehow, somewhere, you saw that spirit in that form or another, and it came to you in your dreams and in your nightmare. Maybe it was even a game. Everything that your spirit interacts with, it has seen it somewhere. It picked it up, and that spirit followed you, or connected with you, or stuck itself to you and made itself home. Not so long thereafter, when you have a nightmare, those spirits that you're exposed to, in the music that you listen to, in the movies that you watch, in the books that you read, in the places that you've been, in what you have seen around you, those spirits manifest in your thoughts, in your dreams, in your visions. They become a part of your mind. They become a part of your mind. They become a part of your mind. And many a time, that is how the devil manifests. He manifests through the things that you have looked upon, that you have meditated upon, that you have consumed and made the norm. News as one in particular. You know, when you watch the news, there's nothing good on it. It shows you violence, it shows you hatred, it shows you blood, it shows you war. And those things that you meditate on, they become a part of your mindset. That is why your fear begins to rise up. Your anxiety, your agitation begins to rise up because of the news that you watch and the fear that it produces in you when you watch those visuals. The spirit is all about the visuals, the things that you see, the things that you interact with. The spirit is very much based on the things that you see and the things that you interact with. When Adam and Eve had their fall into sin, they looked upon the tree as the serpent asked them to do, and they saw that it was good, and then they ate from it. They looked first, they saw it was good, and then they ate of the tree. What you look at, you consume, and your spirit absorbs it. What you look at, you consume, and your spirit absorbs it. Using that as a framework, Your children, from an early age, are being introduced to things which are ungodly, things which you may not even detect but are spiritual and affect them spiritually. These channels that you allow them to watch, that you consider to be just entertainment, are actually feeding their souls, feeding their minds, feeding their spirits. Things like mermaids. Here in Africa, we will know that mermaids are spirits that visit many in the dark and have sexual encounters with them. Mermaids. They are water spirits, and they are dangerous spirits if you know them well. So when your children are introduced to things like little mermaids and people or creatures that are half men, half fish, in your mind, they are entertainment. But in their mind, that is reality. They can't distinguish, nor can their spirits of their minds distinguish what is real and what is not. Therefore, that visual becomes a part of their meditation and a part of their thoughts. And we know that God has made man in a particular way and fish in another. Therefore, when they see depictions of man and fish combined as one, these things are ungodly, like they are unlike God. But their minds cannot distinguish, and then they will receive that as truth. And they will meditate on it, that somehow, somewhere in the world, there's a creature that is part man, part fish. And you call these mermaids. These are spiritual things you're introducing them to. You may think that they are harmless. Talking animals. That is unusual to see. Yes, in the garden the serpent did speak. And yes, the Lord did use a donkey to speak to one of his prophets to send a message. But in the norm, those are not normal. Dogs bark, lions roar. They do not speak. It is uncommon. It is unusual. Therefore, when you introduce your children to animals that are speaking, again, this becomes now spiritual. To say beasts have the ability to speak and you can speak to them as though they were human. They are not human. They are not human. They should not be talking. But these things, we allow them to pass because it's just entertainment. But your children's eyes and ears, it is not entertainment. That is reality. They anticipate that to be true some way. And that also goes along with these superhero movies that they watch, where they are gods who are flying and going invisible and doing all sorts of magic. These things, they consider them to be true, much of which, the reality of which, if they were in reality, would be dipped sakebrosia in places that God does not want them to look upon, in places that God does not want them to look upon. And there are some which are even worse. Some of these shows that they watch, they introduce them to demons, to ghosts, to werewolves. Those of you who go out for Halloween, after all, do you not dress your kids up as ghosts, as werewolves, as witches, as ghouls? Tinkerbell, the fairies. You're introducing your children to mythical creatures, mythical thoughts, mythical meditations, saprudeje, and things which will visit them in their dreams, in their nightmares, in their meditation. They will think on those things as though they were reality. And one day, mind you, when they do meet demons, because many of the shows that you watch on television, many of the people behind it are in the occultic. They see those things, these mermaids, these ghosts, these demons, these werewolves. They see them spiritually. And then they manifest them into plays, into movies, into shows, into animations that your children consume. You see it as entertainment, But behind it, behind the scenes, these are spiritual things that have been seen by these producers, writers, and directors. And they bring them to your screens and they introduce them to you in entertainment form, but not realizing that you are actually being used as gateways. They are opening up your mind to them as reality, to these spirits as reality. And so henceforth, when they visit you in your dreams, become part of your nightmares, you wonder where they've come from. It is because of the meditation, the things you watch, the things you listen to, the things that you look upon on the internet, in your books, in your magazines. Whatever you're looking upon becomes your reality. Whatever you're looking upon becomes your reality. So your children are being introduced to things of the spirit which are there. Spiritually, those of us who see the spirit will know there to be there. These ghosts, these demons, these spirits. But they're introduced in such an entertainment form that your children will think them to be just entertainment until they get a visitation from one of these spirits and they don't know what to do with it because they thought it was just play. They thought it was just entertainment. They thought it was just an animation, not knowing that behind it all, these creatures, these spirits truly do exist. And many a time, they are not from God. And you introduce them or allow them to be introduced to your children because you do not discern or you chose not to. Watch the entertainment your children are watching and really interpret it from a spiritual point of view. Are these things for God or are they speaking against them? Many of these superhero movies have no concept of God at all. As a matter of fact, they introduce your children to many gods. Thor is the god of thunder. His brother is the god of mischief. His father was a god of whatever it was. His father was, I forget. But they are being introduced to gods as in plural, that there is more than one, and God can appear in many forms. I've seen numerous Zeus movies. Hercules, I've watched. The son of God, the son of Zeus. These movies, these animations, these entertainments are bringing concepts to your children that in reality are taking them away from the truth of the scripture and the truth of the Father and the truth of the Son. They are there to mix it up. That many a time I've even heard children mixing up fairy tales with stories from the Bible. Why? Because they think they are one and the same. They read the Bible as if they are stories. And these stories come to them as a form of entertainment, more stories. And they mix them up all together. And they think everything is true. Look at Santa Claus. For those of you who still preach or allow your children to believe in Santa Claus as a being, there are some who think that he exists purely because you allow them to believe that he exists. And the very fact that Santa Claus, the man who brings gifts, is spoken about in the same time that Jesus himself is supposed to be spoken about, shows you that these people have no regard for scriptures, nor the Bible. Who do you think your children would prefer? The Son of God who died for their sins, or a big fat man in red bringing them gifts every year because they were good? Who do you think they'll look up to more? Santa Claus or the Lord Jesus? Santa Claus or the Lord Jesus? To them, Jesus is just as real as Santa Claus. And Santa Claus even the more, because he brings gifts that are tangible, at least, that they can see. So they all believe in Santa even the more. I know I'm being very casual about this. And you may think that I'm even taking these things too seriously as entertainment. But once again, consider the nightmares that you've had. Where have you seen those creatures before that are attacking you? How did you come across them? How did they minister to you? Why do you have fear for them? Somebody introduced them to you in a fear form, and they became a manifestation of your fear. Likewise with your children, when they have their nightmares, where do you think those visuals are coming from? They have seen it somewhere. When they're in the animations of people, creatures being attacked, because any good animation has both good and evil. And even if the good does overcome the evil, they would know that the evil does attack. And whatever form that evil is attacking from, I'm hearing the word even on maleficent. Maleficent. The other thing that they introduce you to is that there is no true evil. Maleficent was supposed to be the anti-hero of the series, but she ended up being the hero. In the first one, at least she was. Therefore, even your children are being confused as to what is good and what is evil, because even the evil can be seen as good, and the good can be seen as evil. Those are all part of scripture, and those are part of realities, things that are being introduced to your children so that they grow up confused and not knowing which way to turn, and not knowing what is truth and how to find it. You need to teach your children how to pray. You need to teach your children how to discern. You need them to know what is good, what is right, what is from God, and what is not. You, as a parent, need to discern on their behalf the things that they watch. What is right? What is from God? You need to minister to them so that they may know the difference, because they are too young to know. They are too young to discern. Stop looking at it as though it is just entertainment. These things are ministering to your children. You need to understand the music they're listening to and what words they're hearing. Words are spirit. The words I'm speaking to you are spirit. But when you bring them into your heart, they become truth. Words are a manifestation of reality, of truth. You need to know what they're listening to and who they're listening to and why. You need to know who is influencing them. And those influences, what do they believe in? And how are they imparting those beliefs to your children? Their eyes, their ears, their hearts, their thoughts are gateways for the enemy. 90% of things on television are not God Ferodoj inclined. 90% of things on television are not God inclined. If anything, those who are behind television and networks are against God. They don't believe in Him. That is why the shows that they are projecting to you, there's promiscuity everywhere. Anybody and everybody is just doing whatever they like without any true consequences. There are no consequences. There is no accountability, and there's nobody to answer to in many of the shows that they watch. It is not just entertainment, it is ministry. So who and what is ministering to your children? And what are they saying? What are they teaching them? You need to look twice. For yourself, you need to discern. Are these the kind of things that my Lord would want my children to be watching? What are they being taught from this? You cannot use television as your babysitting tool, or their iPads, or whatever else devices that you give your children, that they can just sit in gaming to be worse, that they can just sit for hours playing games, watching shows, and you think that the Lord will one day minister to them or get to them when the visuals that they see become more reality than God. Remember, God is invisible. You can't see Him. So these things that you're allowing your children to watch, and even yourself, those are visible to you. The visible is easier to believe in than the invisible. The visible is easier to assimilate and meditate on and make into reality than the invisible, who is God and who is Christ. You need to make sure you watch what you watch. You need to make sure that your children watch what they watch, and you teach them to know the difference between truth and lies, between good and evil, between God and the world. Again, I repeat, 90% of the things that are on television that your children are watching are not God inclined. Very few animations or cartoons rarely ever mention God, if at all. They obviously will not speak about his son nor his sacrifice. They will show them entertainment, and the entertainment many a time is not the right kind. They are creatures that are speaking, dogs and wizards and lizards and whatnot, that many are contrary to the will of God. Your children, in essence, are being introduced to witchcraft. It's very subtly, but you may not see it, or you may not know to discern it. Or even if you do, you may not be speaking up against it, even though you know very well that you should. Where did you know for the first time what a witch is? Where did you know for the first time what a wizard is? Where did you know for the first time what a ghoul is, what a ghost is? You saw it somewhere. You watched it. It was introduced to you. Only later you found out the reality of these things, these spirits, these witches, these demons, these ghouls that actually do exist. But the visions were already imparted into your mind long before your understanding came. You need to realize that the devil is out here ministering to your children in many ways. In many ways. Fairy tales are the worst of them all. And fairy tales, if you know the origins of many of them, they were very violent because many came from the mid ages. They were very violent. There was a lot of bloodshed in them. They became watered down after some time, and they made it packaged for the masses, for family. But the origins of many of them are demonic to begin with. Look it up for yourselves. And even the newly packaged ones, many of the concepts there are not really in line with the will and the light of God. With the will and the light of God. Very few, once again, speak about God nor his light. Yes, they do show good and evil, and many times good does triumphant over evil. But many or very few ever mention that God is the one who is good and the enemy is the one who is evil. And they are the two that they need to learn to align to God or to the enemy. Those concepts are rarely ever put in many of these animations. Again, you may think that they're just stories, but think about this. How did you learn about Jesus? Was it not in a book? I ask you again, how did you learn about Jesus? Was it not from a book? Was it not a story that became reality that you believed in? Yes, you know it was reality before the story, but you heard it first from a book or someone preaching about him from that book, and you believe from the words from that book. Likewise, your children in watching these shows, these entertainments, these books, they believe because their minds go to where those imageries are being created, and those images become reality. Just like every story in the Bible, when you read it, it becomes reality because it presents itself to your mind, and your mind recreates the stories, and you believe. You need to watch what your children are watching. You need to know what they're being ministered about and where it's going to take them. Understand that the enemy is working against them, trying to get to them any way possible. Listen with wisdom. Practice wisdom. Listen with wisdom. Practice wisdom. Be blessed.